but we're going to go ahead and get started with our final award plenary of our 2026 reunion. Let's have a little round of applause. And Alex Klug will be introducing our Eleanor Holmes Norton Award winner.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's not morning anymore. Thank you all for being here. Is it morning still? Okay, it's morning. All right. Late morning, good late morning. As Coco said, my name's Alex Klug, and it truly is my absolute pleasure to introduce this year's winner of the Eleanor Holmes Norton Award, Michelle Moskowitz Brown. Michelle is one of Ohio's most respected voices in food systems, nutrition, and public policy. For more than 30 years, she has dedicated her career to strengthening communities through collaboration, advocacy, with a steadfast belief that everyone, especially our most vulnerable populations, deserve consistent access to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food. Michelle is the current president and CEO of Children's Hunger Alliance, a statewide agency that ensures children across Ohio have access to the nutritious meals they need to learn, grow, and thrive. Before joining Children's Hunger Alliance, Michelle was the executive director of Local Matters in Columbus. There, she helped transform the organization into a nationally recognized leader in food education, food access, and community partnerships. She also played a pivotal role in strengthening and formalizing the Ohio Food Policy Council, a network of local food councils and stakeholders throughout Ohio. I had the opportunity to speak with Michelle earlier this week, and much of what we talked about will be the theme of her presentation today, so I'll just leave you with one note from our conversation. When she spoke about hope, she didn't describe an idealized future, and she did not pretend that the challenges in front of us today are not real. Instead, she spoke about community, which is very much what I heard in our panel earlier this morning, about how when people come together to care for one another, we develop the resiliency that carries us through our most difficult times. And she reminded me that food is at the heart of this work, nourishing not only our bodies, but our relationships, our communities, and our collective well-being. Today, Michelle does the important work of feeding children, and in doing this work, she's inspiring everyone else around her. In true Antioch spirit, and like the award's namesake, Eleanor Holmes Norton, Michelle is a tireless advocate for justice and equity in our world. Today, Michelle will share more about the experiences that shaped her, what led her into food advocacy, and her perspective on where our food system is today and where it could be tomorrow. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming Michelle Moskowitz Brown.
Great. What a beautiful.
Let's walk it out for everybody.
This beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll keep it. I'll keep it up here. How's everybody doing? Does anybody need a stretch? Okay, I just feel like I'm gonna take a moment if you want to stand up. I was a dance anthropology major. Always use the mic, and I do believe that, and I know it's so true. So you can hear me now? Okay, but I'm gonna stand for a minute and welcome you to stand up and stretch if you like. I have a lot of thank yous. Sorry, as a dance person, I need the space to move around. I have so many thank yous. This is my 30th anniversary here from Antioch College, graduating. I want to thank some of my professors who are no longer with us, primarily Demi Reber, Bob Devine, Steve Schwerner, and then some who are, living, Melinda Connor. Joan Chappelle was my counselor when I was here, and she had a profound, even the limited time I spent with her, a really profound impact on me. And also my very good friend Denny, who was not my professor, but who brought me her eggs this morning. And it just doesn't get better than that. And I think the beauty of Antioch is just the people who you didn't even work with are your friends and your caretakers. And supporters. So I'm deeply moved, clearly. I also really appreciated hearing the other award winners yesterday, last night, Karen, Gregory, Michael. I felt like there were threads, and all of you as graduates or spouses of, partners of, have all these stories. And if I listen to any of you, like I did with the panel here today, there's just these layers of connection that we have. With the award winners yesterday, I mean, I have a background in dance and had a lot of connections with that. Gregory Orr's talking about grief. There's a lot of connection. I'll share a little bit more about that. And yesterday, just hearing even Wendy thread in choreography into her speech. It all kind of comes together, right? Do you guys feel that? And every moment that we've been spending together has just felt so special. Okay, so what I'm going to cover, I never get 20 minutes. It sounds like I got 20 minutes, even though we started late. I usually would do when I'm asked to do 20 minutes, it's going to be, here's my work, and I'm going to tell you all the things. I'm not planning to do that. I'm going to talk about how basically, the title of my speech, my unscripted speech, is how the girl from the projects came to be a self-designed anthropology of dance major at Antioch College, and how I now get to lead an organization that provided 10 million meals across 74 counties in Ohio to 125,000 children. So that's what I'm going to cover, and hopefully if we have time for questions and I leave anything out, you can ask about it. Sound good? Yes. Okay. So technically, I was born in Woodstock, which kind of explains a lot of this. My mom, thought my dad was a hippie that would grow out of it, but it turned out that he had more mental health and other issues. And I'm the youngest of 3 kids. We were all within 2 years and 9 months of each other. My mom did eventually also get it together, because I'm also the first college graduate in my family. And just to say, obviously, she put up with a lot with my dad, and I just have so much respect for how she did that. So we did move to the projects when I was just pretty much an infant, about 10 months old, in Canarsie, Brooklyn. I guess I didn't mention that part. Anybody from New York? Oh, we're living there now, yeah. So I'm from what I call deep South Brooklyn, the last stop on the L train, not the cool stop in Williamsburg. And it was the 70s. So anyway, picture what you will. It had all those adventures. It had lots of crime, but also lots of community. We would run relay races around housing projects have central parks that you kind of play around in. So it was a concrete jungle, but it was our concrete jungle. I essentially, fast forward, made my way through education. My mom did care a lot about making sure that we were reading and all that good stuff. And so I went to, fast forward to John Dewey High School. So this was kind of my precursor to how I came to Antioch. And John Dewey obviously was an alternative educator as well. And so I got to have a cooking class, and I started dancing in high school, which felt really late to pick it up because it just did, but I had an amazing program and really great teachers who were teaching both West African and modern dance, and so learning about Merce Cunningham and all kinds of things, and I was choreographing in high school. So but in 9th grade I saw a flyer for Antioch, and so this is as simple as it can be, right? If we just get down to the brass tacks of how people find out about Antioch and know that it's gonna be your place, it just said have you ever been labeled? And it was in my locker bag. But it was kind of like the good labels. It was have you ever been labeled a free thinker and maybe an activist? And I was yes, 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 yes. Oh, no one's telling me to go to college, but I'm going to go to Antioch. And that was 9th grade, and I just didn't look back. I ran for secretary of my high school in 9th grade. And anyway, I was just compelled to activism. I was a student activist, created a social action group, volunteered at soup kitchens, hung out on the Lower East Side pretty much the whole way through my high school adventures, did a lot of protesting and going to DC and even Ohio, we would travel. So got to Antioch, but I was oh, I better study something important and not keep dancing. And I'm I'll study anthropology. And then I saw another flyer. I guess I am susceptible. I don't click on ads to buy things, but I apparently am susceptible to if you can connect with me, I'm gonna stick with you. And it was come audition for the dance concert. And I was I'll just go. I had met Demi on a prospective visit, so I knew how great she was. So I ended up basically getting into the dance concert, and by the end of my first year, I have, in preparation for this talk, the one thing I did do was I read my whole transcript, and I left it in the back there. If you want to go through that, just be gentle, because it's not that sturdy. Basically, by the end of my freshman year, I was like, I'm really interested in how anthropology and dance connect, and I'm interested in just dance culture and sort of maybe even like the industrialization of the body. And anyway, just getting into deep theoretical things. Like, did you guys all do that here, right? You just kind of like, I'm going down this hole, and people are going to encourage me. And they did. So Steve Schwerner signed my anthropology of dance, kind of plan. And as I went through the transcript, I just felt so, as I reflect on the Antioch experience, just the gift of all the feedback that we got. It was just like, if you go back, if you have the written evaluations, and just see that your professors saw you, they saw if you showed up or you didn't show up, they saw how you engaged with material, if you were participating, if you were having issues. When I had personal issues, people like Joan Chappelle were there. Nurse Barb, okay, I have not heard her mentioned, but she would, if you weren't here in her era, she would be in roller skates all the time. Who knows Nurse Barb? I just need to know. Okay, Nurse Barb was like she was just everything. And I remember after my first dance concert, I got a typewriter written note from her, and it's like, hey lady, I didn't know you were a dancer. Like, she just knew me, but she didn't know like what I did, but she always saw me. And it was just a typewriter, like literally on a typewriter on a small piece of paper. So that's a precious item in my collection. But yeah, I graduated in '96, and then I moved back to New York, and I got a job at one of my co-ops, which was Dancing in the Streets. And I got to do, if you heard Mike Caselli talk about like all of the people he worked with in PS 122, and I produced festivals from like Red Hook up to the Bronx, and got to like close streets down that like had never been, like just really fun, intense stuff. During that time, my brother, Aaron, was diagnosed with colon cancer. And this was kind of this is 1999. It was a major moment in my life where I kind of had to pause, and I was spending a lot of time with him. He died from the disease about 18 months after he was diagnosed. And I mention this because I think a lot of my journey has been about how grief has transformed me through just taking the time to like understand that terrible things happen, but there's never like a good thing that happens from that, but as Gregory Orr was talking about, like you make meaning, like it doesn't have meaning. People dying, like you're not supposed to find the meaning in that, but when you can find the thing that propels you forward and kind of how you keep that person with you has been a huge influence in my life. And I met my husband, Aaron, of the same name, which my family was like, this guy came from the universe. So also thank you to him, he's here today, for being by my side for these, 27 years? And let's see, so fast forward there maybe a little bit. I ran some theaters. Aaron's from Dayton, so that's kind of how we get back to Ohio. And how am I on time? Almost 10, okay, so pretty good. So he's from Dayton, and we met in New York through a mutual activist friend. And so I'm running theaters, we have our first kid, and you're just like, how are we making this thing work? The kid's, second kid, and you're like, okay, now I'm really like run ragged, and my back is breaking, and all those great things. And so we had family here in Columbus, and we would visit, and in 2010, we're like, we just need to move there and like figure out what's next. So I left my job. I was at a foundation by then because I was like kind of moving up through the arts, world. And left my job. One thing I noticed in my evaluations is lots of teachers told me to take more risk. And I just want to say like, like in honor to them, I like left my job. I had benefits. I had like started some retirement, and just was like, I'm marketable. We'll just move to Ohio and see what happens next. So I just want to say like, I'm trying. So we moved to Ohio in 2010, and I got to stay home with the kids for a bit. They were almost 3 and almost 6, and reconnected with food. Like I didn't realize, I wasn't thinking, oh, my mom, we were on food stamps when I was a kid. It just wasn't like part of thinking. I knew that was the case, and I joke I didn't eat a vegetable until I was a teenager and learned how to cook myself. My sister is a famous vegan chef, Isa Chandra Moskowitz. If you don't know her, you should know her. Did everybody know that was my sister? Anybody know that was my sister? Okay, but you know who she is? I love seeing people be like, oh, snap. And I do have to shout out, we have a board game cafe in Columbus that my husband founded 10 years ago, and we're about to start. My sister moved to Columbus last month, and we're starting some specials there. So if you live in Ohio, come see us at Tabletop Game Cafe. Cool. So I started to look for what I might do in Ohio. I found this organization called Local Matters that I've seen the sticker, and I basically offered to volunteer there and kind of said, like, what do you need? Because I don't need a job yet. And the founder, who was like a chef and public health advocate, kind of the Jamie Oliver you never heard of, he said, I need help with everything because I'm an entrepreneur and I don't know how to run a nonprofit. So I kind of reorganized the budget, wrote the handbook, and started the first staff retreat, and then started my first day of work at Local Matters in 2011. And then kind of with that work, I got to really go deep into schools and into faith-based organizations and really focus on food education. This is an area where I think a lot of us think it's nice to have. I mean, probably everyone in this room says, oh yes, we should learn about food and all of that. But ever since home ec was canceled, essentially, due to testing and due to, somewhat understandably, like women's lib, it was like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not cooking. We kind of lost touch with all of that. So I got to work on really intensive curricula, as was shared by Alex, who I also thank you so much for the very, very warm intro. I got to really see what it looks like when a preschooler goes through 24 weeks curricula and is tasting and trying and making food from around the world. And that is intense work that needs to happen, and you see those kids really start to influence even their families. So if you say oh, maybe your mom doesn't want to waste money on fruits and vegetables that you're not going to eat, kids just need that. They need that exposure, and I want you all to think about how that's a radical act and not a nice to have, and just really essential to child development. And the beauty of it, as Alex noted, is that is how we connect all issues in the world, for kids. That's the great thing about it, because you can learn about how traditions were started here in this country and what food traditions we do have and where they came from and all that good stuff. So in 2023, I was recruited to Children's Hunger Alliance. I remember that director was leaving. I saw that she was retiring, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a government thing. I don't know. This is this big organization. I didn't know what they did. Not so much, which was a little weird because they were in Columbus, but they were kind of insular. And so I interviewed for the job and felt like I was able to tell this, board and staff exactly who I was. And if they hired me, I would do those things I said, which is increase food education, increase the quality of the food we were serving, increase our partnerships, and just people would know who we are and why we exist. So I started there in December 2023. So it's been about 2.5 years. And now my world has really shifted. I went from very, very, very local to this really large scale work, but it's all still very local, which is to say we have staff all across the state who help. Basically what we do is we make sure that kids have food wherever they are. So whether they're in childcare, both with in-home providers or childcare centers, or if they're at school. We don't do the school lunch program, but we have ways that we work with schools. Obviously, we're not the National School Lunch Program. We come back in after school, and then on the weekends we provide food, as well as in the summer. So the thing that gives me hope is that there's a mechanism to get this work done that I wasn't really aware of, because I was kind of avoiding, in some ways, the government side of this, which is to say that the Child and Adult Care Food Program provides funding, and it has not been touched. So this is not part of the Farm Bill. It's the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Bill that kind of never comes up for reauthorization, so it just gets continued funding. And so we're able to essentially keep child care businesses in business and providing, all 5 food groups every day of the week. So it's, again, sort of this radical thing that when the Black Panthers started the school breakfast program, this would be a dream. It's we can give people money to stay in their community and keep their businesses going and pay and retain their staff because the food's taken care of. So that is one program that if you ever see that being threatened, I need you to call me. It's when it happens, it would be catastrophic if it happens, not when. But it has not come up, literally. Obviously, there are other issues that impact our field, like SNAP changes, like all the stuff that's going on that is atrocious, that is making it harder to do the work for a variety of other reasons. But the core work that we do at Children's Hunger Alliance has been intact. So that's a hopeful thing. And the thing I always say about hope is that the only recognizable feature of hope is action. That's Grace Paley. And so for me, like, it's not, again, like, I'm not aware that, like, everything that's going on is going, everything that we have to be worried about, we have to be worried about, but it's just what's kept me active is I know what I can do about this. Like, I have a keen sense about, like, the structure, the board, the role, all of those things that make organizations successful. If you're going to work in the nonprofit model, basically my thinking now is like, okay, well, the government's job is to make sure that the taxpayers' dollars go to what the people want it to go to. So that's the food. And they shouldn't be running programs. We should be running programs as nonprofits because we are agile. We're doing evaluation. We're constantly in flux and sort of like learning and testing. And so if we can kind of get back to that or keep that kind of idea, then we can carry out the work that our elected officials are there to do. So now I fight it out at the State House. And I know I'm actually almost at time. Not even, okay, but I will say, so on the advocacy and policy side, it's been really amazing to be at CHA, and I think it's interesting that, like, I didn't think that I wanted this job. I just want you all to think about in your life, like, what are the opportunities that you maybe didn't think were for you? Because it surprised me that I would be comfortable thinking about, like, well, all the compliance. We have like a 3-person finance team just to like process and stay. We don't just get one audit, we get audited for like each of our government programs. So I kind of mentioned when I went back to Dancing in the Streets for my first job, I started working in like finance and audits and programs like as a 21-year-old. So it's really been 30 years of like building that financial acumen alongside of all the community work. So that's worked fine for me, and figuring out how do you work with the great team that you have and their technical skill but then also to push them to innovate. So it's been a real nice mix for me. And then on the State House level, we really do have an interesting mix of supporters. At our fundraiser this year, we have Menu of Hope every March. And we have like 600 people at the convention center, and the biggest stage I have had to speak on yet. And this format is so much different than what I have to do in my day-to-day, right? A lot of the time, so it's a lot nice for me today as a break. But this past Menu of Hope, I shared that Ohio is the only state that doesn't have health education standards. And it's kind of been somehow now a badge of honor in some weird way. And I thought, well, what if we at least try to pass food education standards and kind of bypass basically, like, they don't want to teach sex ed in Ohio. That's what holds it up, mostly. Also local control in our 88 counties. So I said, hey, what we need to do is we need to pass food education standards, and we need to create a statewide network to implement nutrition education. And I had Republican and Democrat senators and reps sitting in this room, and within 6 weeks, I now have bipartisan bills in the House and in the Senate for food literacy in Ohio. So I'm getting chills. And so when I think about bringing it back to Eleanor Holmes Norton, I feel like I couldn't have gotten this award at a more significant time for the work. And I feel so honored to be able to carry it out with you all. The panel here this morning laid it all out, so I didn't even have to tell anybody about the food system because you all kind of get that part and got it from some great experts. And that this is all a piece. You need the scale and you need the local work, and you have to constantly, for me, I'm constantly moving my brain back and forth as an exercise because, I mean, in your question about, Coco asked a question just about this. Anyway, not everybody was here, so I won't go into that, but just to say, we need to continue to think about, how the things that we think work are going to work, but then also how we could be thinking differently and working with different people. I did not work with Republicans before I started this job, and that's kind of a decent chunk of my board, some of my staff, and I think when you find the common ground, that's been kind of game changer for me, because I was really worried about that, and it hasn't been a problem. Obviously, we're in a safe zone. We're talking about kids, right? But even still, I mean, the budget process was horrific last year. We're about to go back into it. So it's hard work. You just get up and do it, stay internally motivated, stay with your friends, and that is what I have to share to you with you, and just so much gratitude again to Eleanor and to Karen and Coco and everybody who's greeted me so kindly, and all the staff. And one extra last shout out just to the students, current students of Antioch. Thank you for your courage and all of your work and for carrying this out. It's never easy, and we battle it, and we sort of learn about ourselves and learn about who's with us and who we feel might not be with us, but I just appreciate everybody for sticking with it, and if there's any other ways I can be helpful, please let me know. Thank you. I'm fine, yeah, if you want to ask me.
Okay. Does anyone have a question for Michelle?
Do you want a mic? Yes, you do. Cordless? Yeah, he's coming.
Kathy, keep your hand raised.
Please raise your hand high so we can see you.
Hi. My question is, okay, thank you. I'm Kathy Huff, and I'm from Chicago, and I graduated from Antioch in 1967. I also majored in anthro, although it was a double major, soc-anthro, at that point in time. And I have had an extensive dance background as well, from age 8 to 38, and then later another 30 years of adult ice dancing. So, be that as it may, my question relates to your dance background. Do you think the discipline that you learned there has stood you well as the Antioch background for what you're doing currently?
Yeah, I think, part of that would be like improvisation and kind of seeing how parts fit together. I mean, obviously, Demi Reber gave us a world-class education in so many different ways of thinking about the body and how we move through space. And I think that kind of grounding practice and having some physical practice, just that alone, if you're not moving, you're not able to kind of move through emotion. Like even just to be at the basic level, like dance and movement and connection with your body and with the ground, and embodied practice is something that I feel really strongly about. So I think that does stay with me, even though I only dance for fun now. But yeah, it's grounding. Yeah, I mean, I was in Mexico, Arizona, back in New York, and mostly I wasn't dancing on co-op, I was doing production though. But I did dance Mexican folkloric when I was there for 6 months, so if anybody wants some of that to see some later, I did dance. I don't do much of that.
Maybe time for one or two more questions?
I'm very impressed with your work. It sounds great. And I'm just curious, because I don't know much about the Ohio school system, but I'm wondering how you interact with public schools and how your program supports health and food in the schools. Do you have support from the school districts?
Yeah, so we have some staff members that are just called our school and summer nutrition specialists. So we interact with about 70 districts where we help them with things like breakfast participation. So, 50% of the eligible kids are participating in school lunch, but only less than 30% participate in breakfast. So we help them figure out some solutions like grab and go lunches or breakfast after the bell. We work with Share Our Strength nationally to get grants to schools. So it's basically everything except for the actual meal programs. And then a lot of the programs that we do after school take place in the school setting. So, we're connected to like food service worker, food services and all of that work to make sure that there's continuity sort of before school and after school. And then the weekend meal program is through the schools as well. And so we have pretty broad like cooperation and willingness to work with us because we're bringing essentially free consultation services and free food that's all aligned with health standards and with nutrition, all 5 food groups, like I said. Even when you're working with, on the weekend, sometimes ready-to-eat meals, we basically screen all of that and watch for sugar and salt while we're increasing, protein and fiber and other important nutrients. So pretty good with the school system, yeah. And the teachers and all, more to come on that with the legislation too. So the main key thing is going to be not pushing things on the teachers. That's going to be a key in the food literacy, but we'll work on that.
And we'll have one final question for
I'm Joan Stromanis. I'm very inspired by what you're saying, what all the speakers have said. What a wonderful weekend this is. But I have a political question. As you know, the governor is a local person, and I'm very interested in knowing what his role is and what can you tell us about his real values with respect to programs like yours?
Well, I don't know if, he actually has been super, like in this issue alone, he's been really supportive. So we had, in the last state budget process, we were getting cut, we've been funded at about $7.5 million over the biennium. And so when we got introduced in the House the last budget cycle, they knocked it down to $3 million. And so the way the process goes, it goes from House to Senate to conference committee to the governor. And this was my first state budget too, by the way. So that was a wild ride. So we left the House at $5 million, sort of thankfully, but it was still $2.5 million less than previous. Conference committee restored $500,000, so we were at 5.5. And then the budget passed at that level, which was a $2 million cut. And I basically was like, well, I'm not going to cut children from the program, but I'm cutting $2 million worth of meals. And the governor restored our funding administratively, which is apparently pretty unheard of, through Department of Jobs and Family Services. And I just, for that issue alone, like he has been by our side. So that's as much as I could speak to from my personal experience with him. But of course, we're also in a governor's race that everything's up in the air, and it's going to be super bumpy no matter what happens. Because as you all probably figure, if you're in Ohio, if Acton wins, they're going to strip her powers. And of course, if Ramaswamy wins, who the heck knows what's going to happen. So that's what I would say about that. Wish us luck. Thank you.
Michelle, before you leave, this is such a spectacular moment because not only do I get to acknowledge the Eleanor Holmes Norton awardee, I was the person that said we ought to give an Eleanor Holmes Norton award. And I was Eleanor's campaign manager for 6 election cycles.
Say who you are.
Oh, I'm Karen Mulhauser, and my parents didn't know this, but they gave me the best possible name, so I get to say, I'm Karen about Antioch. But I have a pile of Eleanor Holmes Norton buttons left over from all of those years. And so you didn't arrange it this way, but the fact that I get to give this to Michelle at this time, and you can wear the Eleanor buttons all day.
Thank you so much.
And then I get to introduce somebody else.
Awesome. Well, let me give you a hug and let you do that.
And don't forget your eggs.
Okay, my eggs. Did we get the official photo or does anybody need it? We'll do it after. We'll take some more. Yes. Thank you so much.
So, thank you, Michelle. And I am Karen Mulhauser and Karen about Antioch. And I have the honor to be presenting the next award to a good friend of mine who I met back in, the early 90s when he was very involved in political work in DC. So this is an award for somebody who's been recruiting more students to Antioch than anyone else in the last several years. And this is John Capozzi. He's going to come up soon and make remarks. I'm not going to do a lot of introduction, but we first met each other in the early 90s when he was running for a shadow representative in Congress. And he became the shadow representative in '95 election and served for a couple of years. And then he had a good friend who had been doing some IT work for him, a guy named Darius Riley. Some of you know Darius, because he's a graduate of Antioch College. But I'm going to let John tell you the story about how he got to Antioch College. And, but he wanted to describe Antioch College to Darius, and he asked me to come and describe Antioch. And I guess I did a good job because he chose to go to Antioch College. And John did an exceptional job talking to him and recruiting him. And he graduated a couple of years ago. And John has asked me a few times, to go to the Jobs Corps program in DC, where he could recruit more students to come to Antioch College. But I'll let him tell you about all of the exceptional work that he has done in the years since then to help Antioch College. And the reason he did this is because his father went to Antioch for a year and left some resources to Antioch in his will. Even though he didn't graduate from Antioch, he wanted to help with recruitment for Antioch. And he'd be so proud of his son. I am proud of him. Come on up, John.
Tell us how John is now an honorary alum.
Oh, that's what this is all about. Yes, I had suggested for the last couple of years that we make John an honorary alum because he is like an alum. And so this is the first ever honorary alum recognition that Antioch College has ever given. And I get to give it to you, I guess.
Here, I got you, Karen.
Do it now, or?
Yes, do it now.
Why not?
Why not? And the Arthur Morgan Award. And I also meant to say to Michelle that I took a picture of you, and I live 5 blocks from Eleanor, so I'm going to go there and show it to her.
Great. Thank you, Karen. And
This is given by the Alumni Association.
Yes.
We should say that it's not the college, but the Alumni Association.
It's the
that
Antioch
made you
College
honorary.
Alumni Association.
The Antioch College Alumni Association is the group that made you the honorary alum.
excellent. Well, first of all, thank you to the Alumni Association. Thank you to the college. Thanks for welcoming me here this weekend. I live in DC, not far from Karen, as a matter of fact. So when I say I'm here from DC to help you, you kind of know what that means, hopefully. But the game plan is that I definitely wanted to talk about a couple things, how I kind of got here, but also just what I need from everyone here in the room, because the goal, I'm a recruiter. My background is 30 years in IT recruiting. And so I really need to recruit everyone here in the room to help us get more students to come to Antioch College. And so my role, as far as I'm concerned, as a recruiter, is to actually help save the college by getting us up to 400 people as students enrolled here into the college. And I want to thank Dr. Jane Fernandez as president. She's been helping me right along in terms of this. She set a goal of being at 175 by this semester, starting in the fall. And so I've been working hard to do that. I work with my son actually in a company called C Associates, and we do recruiting in DC. But we actually, what we really have been doing is mostly recruiting for Antioch students all over the country. And what happened with C Associates is that, my son he graduated from college, he wanted to start a business. We started this recruiting firm, and I said, well, why don't we just help out the school? And so we worked things out with the college to do that. Jane has been extremely helpful in terms of making that happen. And then in terms of what I'm hoping to do, and I do have a clipboard because you guys are all activists if you want to sign up to help. I know I'm in the right place when I hear people talking about feeding children and the Black Panthers and being an activist, because my background is really, I grew up in New Jersey. I went to school at Shippensburg University, undergrad and then graduate school at American University. Never really left DC, really liked the community there. And as Karen mentioned, I've been really involved in local politics in the city. Actually, we just elected our first Democratic Socialist as mayor in June. not to mention everybody else I supported who was a Democratic Socialist ended up winning this time as well. So it's very exciting. When I hear Ramaswamy mentioned as governor, I can't even believe like that name comes up as an actual person running for office that someone might vote for. But anyway, that being said, let me talk a little bit about Antioch and a couple of things. Oh, I did want to, my best joke is that in DC politics, you know you're recognized when Eleanor Norton yells at you. That was one of the highlights, actually, as shadow rep that I worked with her. And I learned a lot, actually, from her and what she's done. I mean, her career has been amazing in the city. And I think it's really helpful to know that working with local government is a really great way to do what we're doing, in terms of recruiting students. So what I do want to talk about is the Job Corps, because it's something that what happened was Darius and I, Darius worked, he went to junior high with my son. And so I knew him, and he wasn't doing that well in DC. I said, hey, why don't we try out this place in Ohio? And next thing you know, he's here. And Cameron Green is here. Cameron Green is here. He's actually one of the people that decided to come here from the Job Corps, as a matter of fact, from the Woodland Job Corps in Maryland. And he talked to Darius, because when he said, I'm interested in IT, I said, oh, talk to DJ. He's the person who would be able to explain to you how that kind of works, because this isn't really an IT college, right? This isn't, where you're going to go to get that. But you can still make it work. And so with the Job Corps, we go all over the country now to different Job Corps centers. And I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the Job Corps. It is kind of a service-oriented group. My background is that I worked in the Youth Conservation Corps when I was younger. And my wife is here, Sue Capozzi, who is in the Peace Corps. And she's been very helpful too. I couldn't join the Peace Corps because I can't actually speak a foreign language, but I did my work in the Youth Corps. And then I actually visited a Job Corps center in 1986 when I was there. And from the Job Corps, I realized success is leaving there to go to a job or to go to college. And so when the Job Corps was they tried to eliminate the Job Corps, like many programs, as Trump has done last summer. Antioch welcomed students from the Job Corps to come here because they didn't have a place to go. I mean, a lot of students in the Job Corps, they were homeless before they even got in the Job Corps. So where were they going to go? They said, send the students home. It's like, well, they didn't have a home. So, typical kind of Trump work. But the Senate saved them. They've got funding now, and they're regrouping. And so what we've done is we either visited in person, and my son Hans Capozzi, Shubham Tiwari, who I work with at C Associates, we visited the Job Corps in Phoenix, Philadelphia, DC, Maryland, San Diego, California, Brunswick, Georgia, and Jacksonville, Florida, and we're hoping to do more. But then we also do virtual visits to all these different Job Corps. So we'll set up a Zoom call, and what I really need for all the people here, young people, older, it really doesn't matter. I need you to go to an actual Job Corps site and visit there. Because first of all, it's incredibly invigorating to meet all the young people who have joined the Job Corps, because a lot of them, that was a very difficult decision to do. But when they did it, they're trying to improve their lives. And think about if they can go from the Job Corps and get training there to actually coming to Antioch and getting this 4-year degree. So when I go to the school, to the Job Corps, what I do is I talk about the offer that Antioch has right now. And if you're not aware of it, what happens is if you are Pell Grant eligible, and everybody in the Job Corps is Pell Grant eligible, they wouldn't be in the Job Corps. So you know your audience is eligible to come. Antioch accepts that Pell Grant as tuition. You have to work 5 hours a week to make up the difference in the actual tuition itself. But then since Antioch is a work-study college, I think it's 10 in the whole country, you work 10 hours a week that you get paid for. So you take that money, since you're not paying for tuition, and you use that for your room and board. So virtually you can go here for free for 4 years if you do it right. You might have to take out a loan if you stay over breaks and you'll pay for that. But reasonably, you're going to finish here with little or no debt. And just to give you an example, in DC, right now, George Washington University is about $100,000 a year for tuition. All right. So if you're talking about $400,000, and then we're talking about coming to Antioch basically almost for free, it's fairly easy sell. Like I do a lot of recruiting of more difficult jobs. This is a fairly easy one in some way, and it's very helpful to be able to go and offer young people that opportunity. Not to mention, it's helping the Job Corps because they need to show success that their students are moving along and getting into something that's either a job or that is going to be to go to college. So that's what I wanted to bring to you guys today. I am really honored, actually, by the fact that you guys recognize the work. I mean, I love recruiting. This is what I do. I really like helping getting people jobs. But getting people to come to Antioch has been an even higher reward because you think about what that's going to do for people in terms of life-changing opportunities. And then I didn't talk about DC too much. I go to all the high schools in DC because I work for a nonprofit called On Ramps to Careers. And what we do there is we get DC youth into IT internships. You know, my background's IT recruiting, so the idea of working with high school and college students that want to get in the industry is how we encourage people. And like, I'll give you an example. Like, I would go to meetings in DC where, you know, everybody there was, you know, sort of like me, white, you know, male. This is the IT world, right? If we could change that by diversifying that, just getting people from DC high schools alone into the industry would actually transform that. And that's one of our goals at On-Ramps. And so we had 350 interns this summer. I talked to all of them about, guess what, going to Antioch College as their opportunity once they finish with their internships. Because if they're doing an internship, it's just like the co-op program here. I mean, part of what I explain to students beyond like the offer of how they can go there, you know, financially and actually afford it, is that with the co-op program and the Working on Campus program, you know, we're thinking about the idea that you're going to get all that experience while you're going to school, and then you're going to be able to get a job, not just with academic learning, but with all the experience. And you mentioned that you caught on with one of the people that you had co-oped with. That's what I try to explain to people. You could do that. You could use that experience to go elsewhere. You know, my job's a recruiter, so I'm going to help you once you graduate anyway, just because that, you know, that's kind of what we do. So, and we have like a 90+% placement ratio, which when I mention this to other people, they kind of find that hard to believe, considering it's a small liberal arts school, not some trade school or something. So I do want to say that. I didn't know, is Rebecca here from Alaska by any chance? She was here, Director Wick was an alumni. She was here last year, as it turned out, and she contacted me afterwards. She actually visited the Palmer Job Corps in Alaska, which is pretty, like, I thought, wow, like if we get somebody from Alaska, that would be really amazing. Actually, we have someone coming in the fall who's going to be here from Alaska. Originally grew up in Cleveland. His goal is to come back. I don't know, he took some welding class in Palmer, Alaska. I wasn't sure why. But anyway, he's coming from Alaska to come to school here. So it just proves that there is no geographic location that doesn't work. The Job Corps actually pays for people to kind of go back to where they started when they finish. So they actually have paid for students to come to fly here when they start in their semester. So, you know, that's kind of taken care of. The school itself, you know, whether it's Shane Creeping Bear, in terms of like, he's been helping me, you know, in terms of the recruiting. Ms. King has also been extremely helpful. Like, they've worked out details for every student that had issues coming here, you know, whether it was like transportation, you know, any sort of like, you know, accommodation. Like, some people had to come early, some people want to bring a pad. I mean, you'd be amazed like what comes up. But I do appreciate the opportunity to enlist you guys. I was going to put my email address up here actually, so that you can contact me. Because I do want to get in touch with you. Like the idea of setting you up to go to one of these Job Corps, first of all, you'd be helping me because then I don't have to go. But secondly, like if you go there every few months, like even once, 2 or 3 times a year, see, they graduate every 9 months, and so you would be hitting those new students as they come in, and when people are separating, all of a sudden they're like, hey, what am I going to do with my life? You should go to Antioch College. So that's what I would like to see happen. I think it's a great opportunity for you guys, because I know how much you care about the school. You know, Jane has mentioned to me how much people have contributed financially and just the kind of commitment that has been, and I really am humbled by that. But the idea of actually recruiting a student and then seeing that person come here and finish, I mean, it is really gratifying, and I know that you would all get a kick out of that, and I definitely want to see that happen. So, questions? Anything that you have? And thanks again to the alumni for letting me do this.
An honorary alum.
Anyway.
Any questions?
And I know we're probably going to go over time, so I hope people aren't too hungry, but you never want to stand, you know, as a politician, you don't want to stand between people and their lunch. That's always a bad idea.
Is this on? Yeah, hi, I'm Martha Rose from New York. I think it's a great idea, because I do think it's a great population that would be interested in Antioch. Are you going to do any follow-up, like any trainings afterwards? Or, because I could go in New York, you know, it's just a matter of then what's the logistics of how it works, and,
Okay.
you know, and I'm not even sure they'll let us in the building, but I mean, it's a great population.
Well, I will say this about New York. I called the ones my dad originally grew up in the Bronx, you know, Italian, you know, my grandfather was a tailor, went to the Bronx. He actually moved to New Jersey because the windows were broken by the mafia because he wouldn't pay protection money. At least that's the story we heard. But back to New York, like I called the people in the Bronx many times because, you know, like I figured, oh, my dad has this affiliation with the Bronx and he set up the scholarship to the school. Nobody would ever call me back, right? We did a seminar with the Alumni Association, with the Professional Association of the Job Corps, and the people from the Bronx and Brooklyn actually joined that call. And so I called that person back. I've already actually done a virtual one with the Bronx and with Brooklyn. I'd love for you to actually go there. They are actually very interested. One of the people from the Brooklyn one told me, nobody from Brooklyn will ever go to Ohio. And I was like, I don't know. I think a lot of people have gone anyway. So that was really interesting to me. But you know, I'm a very persistent person, and so we actually have done this summer. So I do need you to actually go to, whether you want to go to one in Brooklyn, there's one in the Bronx, in Manhattan, if you want to go. Yes, absolutely. So I need you.
So, John,
So here's how so logistics of this work, and you mentioned training. I think the best thing to do, I do training with like the Job Corps people, but I'd be happy to do a training with the alumni to show how you know, when I go there, what I do. So I'll just give you an example. This is, you know, I have a prop that I bring, which is the $2 bills, right? So what I'll do is I go to a Job Corps and I say, you know, like I give the introduction, Antioch College, here's why you should consider it, here's the offer. And it's like anybody have a question or concern. The first person that answers the question, I give them $2, right? All of a sudden I get everybody's attention immediately, right? And that only cost me $2. So I'll just throw that out there as an option. So what I want to do as a training is I would like to have you, you know, like it takes about 10 minutes to explain the offer and what we do. We have some slides that we use for the virtual presentations, you know, showing like the Wellness Center, explaining the co-op program. And Louisa Berry, for example, has joined me on several calls. If you know her, she is great. She like explains the co-op program in incredible detail and knows every co-op that's ever happened. So she can say, here's, oh, you want to go here? Okay, you can go to Mexico. Oh, no, we're going to help you do this. And it's very helpful. So that's what I would ask. So we can set up a call with alumni. I talked to the San Francisco chapter, the alumni group previously. And so there is no place where you live that there probably isn't a Job Corps within some range.
And John, how many Job Corps have you? I saw you counting them. It was
we're up to 40 Job Corps that we've been to, that we've actually talked to directly. And then I've got a bunch more that kind of know who we're doing. And then every once in a while, someone calls me and says, oh, you know, I'm at this Job Corps and I heard about your program. It's like, great. And then a lot of it's called the counselors there, the CTS people, career transition counselors, they actually figured out that Antioch is a good opportunity for their students. They're calling me now explaining, hey, I've got this student, can you talk to him now? And then, you know, 15 minutes later, you know, we're on they have to do 3 things. They have to do an application to the school, high school transcript, and they have to fill out the FAFSA form, which gives them the Pell Grant.
Oops. Over here, I was on the stack. What?
How many more questions?
Yeah, we can take a couple more. We were about 10 minutes behind, so I figure we'll go to 11:40 if that's okay with everyone.
Great.
So I have, I guess, a more philosophical question about how you think about career.
Yes.
And how you integrate that then into your recruiting style. And I don't know, I'm hoping to get a little bit more insight about how you talk to students and also what you're hearing from students. I mean, I'm thinking about my experience in grad school as a TA at a large public institution where, you know, students are essentially being shuffled through to get a credential, to get a job, et cetera, and they're really not kind of open to, by design, you know, the potentially transformative nature of the classroom or whatever. So, like, how do we talk about that, especially when students might come with a very specific career or job trajectory,
Right.
while maintaining an openness to what, you know, the educational process could look like or be like, or what you might find along the way. So I wonder, what's your strategy for communicating to students, you know?
Well, it's, Coco, I'm glad you asked, because the thing is, I had to explain to students who are in a Job Corps setting who are getting like a trade, like they're getting a nursing certification, they're getting something in forestry, they're getting some specific IT credential. You know, Antioch is not different. This is not what Antioch is doing. This is a small liberal arts school, and you're not going to major in some, you know, sort of like track. You know, this is not what we're doing. And also, coming from the Job Corps, it's a very structured environment. I mean, this is like, you know, like the discipline. I talked to a 17-year-old this week who like every 2 hours has to sign a piece of paper so they know where she is because she's under 18. By the way, she's coming to Antioch. She is really excited about this, and which I couldn't believe. She was like, are there other 17-year-olds at Antioch College? And I said, I'm sure it's happened, yes. I'm not worried about that. but please fill out your application. So I do try to talk about how, as a small liberal arts school, you know, you're not going to major in some specific thing. You're actually going to major in like how, like, and I explain that Antioch is how you help people. This is like, you know, our goal is to have people graduate that want to help others, right? And that's why I feel so comfortable here, because that's kind of what my career has been about in terms of, you know, jobs, but also now, like, you know, just helping people in general. So that's how I try to do it when I explain it. You have to create your own major. That does confuse some people, because they're like, oh, but what about a business degree? What about this kind of degree? It's like, no, we're not doing that. We're actually going to create a major that you want to specifically do. So like if you're interested in writing, it's like, what kind of writing do you want to do? Maybe we can like combination do that, and then you're going to go specifically into it, and then your co-op will actually be in that very specific area, and you can go work in it. So I try to connect those things, because I think that's important. One fun fact about me is that I'm an ultimate Frisbee player. I've been playing since the 70s, and if you know Ultimate, it's called Spirit of the Game. There are no referees or umpires. The idea is that offense makes all the calls because it's an honor system, right? So the idea is that that's the kind of thing that like you have to understand about the school, is that that's what they're trying to instill in people. And if that's not what you're doing, you know, and you just want to get some degree and go out and get into a very specific thing, you're probably not going to do that. Like when you talked about your career, Michelle, I mean, it's like you definitely have moved in like in completely. Right. Although I was excited that you got recruited for your current job, so I hope a recruiter helped you.
I'll try to make this quick, although I get long-winded. But how do you assess the challenge or the risk or the fear of artificial intelligence to what you're proposing us to? Do we have time on our side?
I do. I think artificial intelligence is a great tool for me, because it does, like, I have ADD, so it's really nice when I put in, hey, I want to learn something about, you know, this thing from ChatGPT, and then I can go back to it like 35 or 40 minutes or a day later because I forgot what I was doing. But the idea is that you have to have a philosophical background of understanding what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think AI is that tool to do that. The idea it's going to take over. I'm an IT person. Like, everybody thinks whatever they invented in IT last week is going to take over the industry, and many times it actually does, and they make a whole bunch of money. But then something else comes along that's even better. You know, like think about Google and like how that was like the be all and end all, and now that like it's just a search engine which is far behind ChatGPT. So like I do think technology is something that evolves, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it works. But like someplace like Antioch is going to be, here's the philosophical reason why AI is good or bad, and I think you have to look at that as a person, and I think that's helpful.
How about a few numbers? When did the first Job Corps students come to Antioch?
Okay.
How many of them have stayed in Antioch? Have there been any that have graduated, and what did they do?
Okay, so that's a good question that I don't know the exact answer to. To be honest, I can't say I've tracked it. The people at admissions would know the answer to that more specifically. But about 4 years ago, I met a student at a job fair, and they said, I'm from the Job Corps in DC. And I was like, oh, somebody from the Job Corps came to a job fair? That was impressive to me that they actually would show up. No, seriously, because it's like I go to a lot of Job Corps and you never know why people are motivated to come. But we talked about the Job Corps. I said, how about this college? Because I don't have a job for you, but what do you think about that? He said, why don't you come over and talk to the students? And that's what we ended up doing. And Karen has joined me on several of those visits. And it's really interesting to see what students ask and what they're concerned about. So I think we're at about 50 people from the Job Corps who are actually here now. Gogetsky is one of the students who I think graduated just in June. She was one of the first people that I recruited. And so there's a bunch of people here that are from the Job Corps right now. You know, as I say, it's probably around 50 or more. I'm hoping I have about 20 plus or more coming in the fall. I've already got people that are ready to come in January, because that, when people leave the Job Corps, they don't leave just to come to the fall semester. They leave at any time. So, I lined them up for January as well, and then there's going to be fall of 2027. So recruiting, that's how I look at it. As I said, my goal is to get to 400. I hope we're going to be close to 175 by the time the fall starts, or January. And I'll just to let you know, I'm talking to students right now that are going to be coming here in August, because for whatever reason, they didn't pick their school, they didn't have the money, something changed in their life, and all of a sudden, like, Antioch's an option because I'm calling them, right? And it is about outreach, because a lot of times, you know, people get a lot of emails and they don't get a lot of phone calls though, or in-person visits. So that's where the gold is of actually meeting people, because then all of a sudden they have a personal connection. And plus, like, you have to call students back. I mean, 5, 10 calls to that person is not unusual for me. And I really like doing it, so it's not like difficult, but seriously, like, I'm tracking, like, you know, 50 students at a time. If you guys are just tracking one Job Corps and you have 5 to 10 people, that's doable, I think. And that's how you get people to come, because it's like, hey, did you do your application? Yes. Then I call Credit King and she says, well, it's partially done, but it's not completed. So I call them back and say, hey, you need to go finish it. Oh, how about the FAFSA thing? Well, that's more complicated, so then that takes more time. Then as far as high school transcripts, if they got their GED from the Job Corps, it's pretty easy, but if they went to a high school, they got to contact that high school, they got to get them to send it. I mean, it becomes a little more of a challenge, and that's where the follow-up occurs. So I hope that sounds like success to you. To me, getting 50 people to do anything in life is challenging. Getting them to come to Ohio and make a commitment to come here, whether it's expensive or not, is a big thing. And I do really appreciate the opportunity, and just hope that everyone is motivated to at least think about what we're talking about. Thank you.